Well, welcome back to the Kingsway Podcast. Excited to be here. Jed here with me.
Hi.
This week. Yo. We are filming this on a Tuesday. Mm-hmm. It's not just any Tuesday. It is November 3rd, 2020.
It's Kevin's birthday.
It is Kevin Bryant's birthday. He probably doesn't watch this, so
probably
it won't matter. But it is the dumpster fire of all dumpster fires that has been lit in 2020. We don't know the results yet, but by the time this comes out, we may know nothing more. Anyway, who even knows? Excited to be together again. I think, Jed was like, "So what's the plan for today?" And I was like, "I don't know, man. I think we got to talk about some politics." And he's like, "Oh, really?"
And I said, "Let me at him. Like, you know me. Sports and politics.
Your favorite.
I just cannot get
Man,
enough.
this month is, I guess last month. This is 2 months. Awesome. If you haven't checked out our sports one, go back and watch it. Definitely worth the time. Lacrosse. No, I'm just kidding. So I don't really have a huge plan, but I guess my thought process here is I have kind of like this back of my mind, like, I don't know, maybe you're like me. I've been around just long enough. I'm in my mid-30s. So that means I've voted a few times now. But this has been the most intense election that I can ever think of. And even looking into history, it just seems like this has been volatile and crazy. And I just don't feel like we can't talk about it just a little. So here's how I want to kind of start our conversation. And maybe we don't need to get too controversial because that's not really the goal of this. It's more of just like saying, like, we're at no point during this are we going to say who we voted for. Let's just be upfront and honest. Like, we're not like saying like, hey, this is who I voted for and why. Mainly because I feel like that's just it's not something that I even want to postrate in. I just don't think that's worth the posture that it does. I don't think it's unifying right now in any way, shape, or form. And maybe that's even controversial in me saying it. But so here's what I want to start with. Like, when you think about politics over the last, let's say, just 6 months, even through Corona, and then watching this debate, like, as like, you voted now three times, 2 times,
2 elections,
2 elections. Yep. So like, what are your thoughts? Like, when you think of that, are you done? Are you like, is your mind like just, are you numb to it? Do you just not care? I'm just curious to like the younger.
Yeah, I really don't pay attention at all, honestly.
You said you got off Facebook. Was that just because of like political stuff or just the drama? Or
I mean, that was a long time coming. Literally, when I said I got off Facebook, you said, well, you're not on church staff anymore, so you don't have to have it. And that, like, that's it. For a couple of years, that's the reason I had it. Yep. And so it was just more of a, I get that. I don't know. I didn't want it. And it really didn't have a lot to do with politics, but I don't really pay attention.
Why don't you feel like, is it just, you just don't care? You just don't think it affects you? Like, I'm just trying to like, I'm not trying to like, I know. Is it laziness? I mean, you be honest.
I mean, I won't deny there's some laziness involved.
Nah, there's mine too. So I'm not trying to put you in something I'm not too.
Yeah. But I just don't have an interest in it. And I think a lot of it is that there are, it just makes me upset.
Mm-hmm.
and sad. And not just because of, because I think the people involved are just selfish, bad people. Well, I don't want to hear.
Naturally, I mean, you and I have kind of a simple approach to like life where it's not like we are completely people pleasers, but we want to see people get along. We want to see things go well. We like the positive sides of life. We encourage one another, and like even being friends for a while, like I know, like you and I just, we don't like the drama. I mean, I started like quote Justin Bieber, but like I don't do well with it, And so like in my mind, I know you and I are just kind of like, there's so much drama in that. Yeah. It's draining. Like that's, and I think, is that like a good like definition of like sometimes why you run from it or why it's not something that interests you? It just it causes anxiety, it causes fear. I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that's me. Yeah. Like 100%.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely see myself in that, like but I think, again, all of that is just caused by the people involved being selfish people that I don't really see them being like actually fighting for the good of the country as much as fighting for their own agenda or their own
their own party, their own agenda, their own personal gain.
And a lot of times it's not even in the party. It's just literally their own individual, what I want, what's good for me.
And that alone, it kind of shows too of like the breakdown in trust. And that's been kind of the biggest thing I think I've recognized, like when 9/11 happened and George W. Bush was in charge, like the amount of trust that was in like, we're going to be okay. Like I was talking to somebody earlier today, like when the New York Yankees played their first game back in New York and George W. threw out the first pitch. You ever watch that scene? So he goes out and he throws the first pitch of the first game back in New York and he throws this strike, not from in front of a mound, on the mound. And it's just like this perfect strike. Yeah. And it's like the most American thing ever. Like, right? It's like baseball strike the day after, you know, like planes flying over, like the fallen, you know, firefighters and police officers, and everybody's just like goes, I mean, they're just freaking out. And like there was just this confidence of like, we're gonna be okay. That's cool. And like we're gonna make it, and like no matter, and it was the stupidest like, you know, like little thing, but it felt real. Like you're like, even, you know, I was only like 18 years old at the time, but you know, it felt very real. And I know for me, you know, this time period, there just hasn't ever been a moment where I felt like we've come together in any way, shape, or form. There's only a breakdown in trust. And I'm not trying to blame one party or the other. I think everyone has something to blame. And I'm really not trying to even say that the media has done it all or hasn't done enough. I think it's a weighted thing, but there wasn't an event that ever pulled everything together. And that kind of frustrated me because I felt like, you know, I don't know if you're like me, but like when there's a crisis, I feel like there's such an opportunity for everybody to very quickly go like, all right, there's a crisis. We just need to all get on the same page. You know, like we just need to get on the same page. And so, you know, and that was just sad that it never happened and that it just never came about. You know, as far as like voting and stuff, I found it really frustrating that your vote became this divisive thing that really was tied to your morals, your political opinion, then was tied to your like salvation at times. You know, your political opinion was tied to your like whether or not you were going to be accepted by the people around you, even inside families. You know, it just became so divisive. And I don't just mean at a national level. I meant like down to like I said, like your Thanksgiving table will be affected by this this year. Absolutely. And even like so much so that like I was talking to a couple people today that had voted, and like no one's like just like, well, this is who I voted for. Like nobody wants to say who they voted for because they're afraid that, you know, it's not worth the risk of what could be if it starts, you know, some sort of kind of conversation that leads down a disunity, you know, broken, just weighted, almost like bomb.
Do you think that part of it is because nobody like is actually there? We can't fully back either. Either main.
100%.
Like they're just like, it's not even that they don't want to get into that divisive or that fight that could happen if they say I voted Biden or I voted Trump or whatever. But they legitimately can't defend.
I've talked to people on both sides, and I've had the conversations because of a lot of times it's trying to find ways to bring families back together that don't agree, or even find ways to say like, how do we have honest conversations and disagree? That's like church stuff, right? Like that's life stuff. And this political thing has brought it to the forefront for a lot of people where they have to have those conversations in a very real way with names like Biden and Trump at the center of it. But really it's like, there's lots of ways that these conversations, but you're absolutely right. I don't find somebody that's like, this is my 100%, this is it. I find it much more of like, well, this is the lesser of two evils. And like, that's what they're weighing their vote on is like, they recognize that enough smearing, enough questions, enough whatever news has come out, whether you want to call it fake or true, you know, they don't know what to measure their vote by. And it makes it even more complicated when you throw in, you know, discussions on, you know, Medicaid and health stuff, when you throw in education or police reform or abortion or, you know, like you hit these topics and like everybody just, they automatically think red and blue have certain ways that it like falls, and it just hasn't been as clear cut as I think I want. And then of course, you know, taxes and trades and all that junk. And I mean, we can get into the minutia if we want, but I really don't think that's what has been the saddest thing about all this, is because I think the saddest thing about all this is, again, we get caught up in this, and it's like a fear cycle in my mind that we are convinced that who we vote for is going to have more change and more effect in our life than the person we stare at in the mirror in the morning. And that makes me sad. It's a false hope. It's not that God doesn't use the leaders that are put in place, whether it's going to be Joe Biden or whether it's going to be Donald Trump again.
Yeah.
But I just think that we can use them as an excuse for the consequences and the reasons that our world is falling apart. Or we can look at ourselves and go, golly, man, there's some things I should work on in my own eyes before I start pulling the planks out of others.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to take care of my own. So, I don't know. I think it's just healthy to have a discussion. I wanted to give a couple pointers to like some things that I heard this week, which I love. Andy Stanley's Church North Point, which I've quoted a few times. I feel like they're always one step ahead of this stuff. Mainly because I do feel like in Georgia, they have a lot of Democrat and Republicans, so they have to. And when they have a larger church, have 8,000 people and 8,000 people showing up to a Sunday morning, and then they're both on like the opposite side of the aisle. How do they come back together? And so one of the things is he says we can all disagree, but we should love unconditionally and believe in the one that ultimately gets victory.
Yeah.
And so I loved that statement that they put out. And I just think that's kind of where I land. It's like we should all learn how to disagree. There are definitely going to be things that, you and I do not agree on. Music, that's great. We've already established that. Do not agree on the role of sports and how awesome they are. We don't agree on even some of the interpretations of the Bible that we have. And I've always appreciated that, we don't devalue, we don't name. It's never a personal attack. It's always a learning process. That's part of the reason why we say we love to learn and we are learning to love better. It's kind of the tagline of what we do. And I feel like this is an opportunity as a church to do that, as a country, I would say more as the kingdom of God than nationality. And I feel like this was a softball. I feel like this was an easy thing to get right, to push aside the things that are kind of difficult in this, and then to focus on the thing that was most important. And I feel like I have a wound in me from this year because I feel like we just didn't do it very well. Yeah. And I don't know if I include myself completely in the same guilt level as some others, but I know that I have a piece of the pie to hold myself.
Sure.
And I just wish that when all this hit and March came and all this kind of made it harder, I wish we would have done a better job of just being unified together and trying to find ground. And I feel like we missed it. And this has just been really sad in my mind. And I know you said sad. I kind of fluctuate between sad and angry a lot.
Yeah,
I think it's sad and mad. And, I just wish that, the church had taken, I don't know, not our church maybe, but, the church had just had a way of finding a way to be unified and not finding each state having their own kind of battlegrounds. And I think it just showed the cracks in our unity more than it, and I don't know. It kind of wounded me. It kind of made me a little sad. It kind of made me a little frustrated that I wish we could have found a way to kind of be on the same page and fight for the same things and hope and pray for the kingdom of God to come and to be near. And I know I prayed and I probably preached on fear and courage and pride and patience and kindness more than I preached on anything else this whole year.
Sure.
And I think it's all because I feel it in my own heart and I see it in the people around us. And even when I voted today, I could just feel that tension or that weight of like hoping that when I finished filling that out, that I would like lift off, I would feel better. And I was just like, that wasn't it. It's like, I wish that was it. I know the decision hasn't been made. So like that may be part of it, but I just could tell I'm like, this isn't going to be the thing that fixes this.
Yeah. I think like I've been thinking about, I think unity in general as a concept is something that I think a lot about. Because I think I've grown up in a time where, not that the church has always been great at being unified until the year 2000, but I feel like there's been, I don't know if I feel great about saying like the church has been more divided in the last like 15 years than maybe ever before, but you know, I couldn't defend it, but I feel okay saying it. You know?
Yeah.
And I think like, we all have a responsibility to fight that. And so like, there's been just this idea in my mind where I've been kind of workshopping a definition of unity. And the simplest thing that I can make it is focusing on where we agree and ignoring where we disagree. Not necessarily ignoring, but making it less important. And I think that's where you and I get along well. Like you were talking about, where we have these disagreements in, you know, matters of theology, or, you know, things that maybe don't matter as much,
but we prefer.
But, you know, we have our own preferences. But but even when we disagree on interpreting a verse, or you know, anything like that, we respect each other's intelligence and learning and study of the things. And the thing is, I think that's something that the church has been really bad at for a while, is, and I think it stems from not focusing or not remembering that we're all we all pledge allegiance to not a flag and not a country, not a nation, but to one that is sovereign over every nation.
Yeah.
And so that we feel like we have so much to fight for in our own camps and stuff, whenever in reality, like, we're all on the same team, even if some of us are Democrats, some of us are Republicans. I don't, you know, mean to make it like so Christian-y, but I do think that's part of the answer. It's just there's a song that came out, and this is kind of what I've been thinking about a lot over the past couple of days, because a song came out called "You Are My Country" by a band called Gable Price and Friends, and there's just there's a line in it that, like, I think really sticks out to me, because it just steals a line that we apply to America so much. Yeah. And applies it to God. And it's, I pledge allegiance to the presence, no matter what the cost.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a good line.
Yeah. And so, I don't know. It's just something that I think we have such a problem, because it's almost even beyond, like, putting our nation or our government or anything and prioritizing it too much. It probably goes down even to, like, prioritizing ourselves too much.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's what I was going to say. It's hard to diagnose exactly what the issue is, but you can tell there's an infection. Yeah. That's kind of what I feel like. It's almost like the nationality, the way that we make our citizenship of America more than our citizenship of heaven. But I also think it really comes down to, you know, if you could psychoanalyze it, and I'm not a psychiatrist by any means, but I can psychoanalyze it pretty quickly, where I can feel myself going, the places that I do have a vote and I do have more control, and I do have things that have a worldwide or national wide, or as we are world power, a worldwide influence, is my vote, is my policy, is my, you know, and so, like, you feel that more naturally. Like, you're like, I can get my teeth in that. I can get my claws in that. I can feel my effects. Whereas, like, with the gospel and with the kingdom of God, it is more subtle. It's a cross rather than a throne, right? And it's rather than being lifted up in this world, it's lifted up from the grave, you know? And so there's just a different way of, like, approaching things. And I know for a lot of those that are new to Christ, you know, kind of reign and his understanding of how to follow him and all this stuff, like, it can be a challenging thing to understand that sometimes losing is winning. Yeah. And, like, sometimes that when things aren't going well, that's actually the setup for what God likes to do. I mean, we just finished the book of Esther on Sunday mornings. That's exactly what the whole book's about. It's like, when things look their worst, God's actually preparing to do his best. And it's not necessarily for the individual. Sometimes it is for the nations. And so, you know, I know for me, as I've been watching and learning and stuff, you know, that's the language I've been using is the wounds. It's this, like, you recognize the infection or the hurt or the, you know, kind of the ways that I've been kind of lulled into thinking that this is the proper way to interpret or look at or move forward. I am curious. You know, my prayer has been through this whole thing is I've kind of seen these and felt this and kind of been, you know, sad, angry, you know, depressed, truthfully. My prayer has constantly been, whoever gets elected next, may the church, you know, rise up and actually move the kingdom of God forward, not just our own agendas or our own policies, or, you know, what would be best for us to prosper, or even honestly to keep us safe. I mean, I like almost don't want to pray for safety, because I feel like that's really, I heard this the other day. There's no adrenaline when you're completely safe and nothing's going on.
Yeah.
Like when there's risk and there's challenge and there's a little bit stuff, you know, up in the air. That's when the adrenaline, that's when life kind of gets real and fun and opportunity for adventure and stuff. So, you know, in some ways I don't wish the worst, because, you know, it's like that would be horrible, you know, to wish that we just get the worst situation ever. But in so many ways, the church has thrived when it's at the worst. When things are at the worst, that's when the church actually normally becomes the church, because those that don't really care, they fall off. But those that really do follow, they actually start doing what Jesus is telling them to, and what he's been asking to. It kind of segues almost perfectly into what I want to end our discussion with, and I'm glad you were able to talk for a few minutes. And really, we're recognizing the time that we're talking, and that it is Thursday morning, and some of you are probably depressed at the results. And some of you are very excited at what has happened, and maybe the wounds that we're talking about, they're real now. And you're feeling this is just another 2020 thing, and trying to digest it.
I hope that if you are feeling a level of depression, no matter what the results, I think there will be some, obviously some that are depressed if either party wins, but then there are some that will be depressed no matter what.
And that's
like either way.
That's kind of where I am, truthfully.
But I think, and again, sometimes the most Christian sounding answer is the right answer.
Dude.
And I kind of hate saying that, but it's just the truth. But I do hope that, like, no matter what the results and no matter how they make you feel, there's a hope in knowing that, our allegiance is something greater. And
I pledge allegiance to the presence. I mean, I love that. I mean, that makes me excited, because I do feel like, as much as we've tried, and even what we're talking about now, we've put our focus on this event and this election, and, you know, there's so much more going on in our world than that. And so as much attention as we've given, I'm not saying it's not worth it. I'm not saying that it's not worthy of our time. I'm just saying there are things that are going on outside of just deciding something. You know? And so part of what we do every November at Kingsway is we do a money series. And we have done that for every year that I've been here, probably 8 or 9 years in a row. But we've kind of transitioned it over the last year or two into a kind of a generosity and stewardship series. Keeping the money theme, but recognizing that we want to do more than just talk about how to deal with our money, but how to be generous with it. So we're actually launching the new series this next week, and it's meant to be an encouragement to anybody that's been watching us live stream or listening to our podcast. I think this would be one of the series that, even if you're not a Christian, I think you could jump on this and you would really enjoy it. We are launching a series called Bring the Light. Cool. And it's a series that's based out of Matthew chapter 5, verse 14 and 15, where Jesus says, no one lights a lamp and sticks it under a bowl. They put it on the table for the whole sin. So the world will see your deeds and know your allegiance, know who you are, live as the light. And so basically what we're trying to do is saying, regardless of what happens in the election, regardless what happens in, you know, in our personal preferences and things in the political realm, we have a priority to follow and to do what Jesus is saying. So what we're going to do over the next month is, of course, we're going to talk about how to better work your finances and be good stewards, because if you don't have a shirt, you can't give a shirt. Like if you don't use your money well, you can't be generous. Like there's just no way around that. But there's also a chance that maybe you have a little extra, or maybe you have some extra time, and maybe you're just unaware of the needs around us. So we have a diaper pantry in town that is just collecting diapers for families that do not have, young moms that don't have it. We have a crisis pregnancy center in Aurora that, because of COVID, they would actually get a ton of fundraising from bands and different things that would local bands that would actually raise it for them. They have none of that coming in because of Corona. So we're trying to raise a little bit of money for them. I think our goal's 1,000, but we're hoping we can do more. We have 2 local missions in Springfield that work with homeless. The homeless are being hit hard with Corona because they don't have access to some of the same normal things that they would be able to get into shelters and have access to, because there's just things are shut down. So we have 2 different places. You can give to a list of basically things you can turn into the church or give to them online. There's also places to serve in their overnight shelters. They need volunteers badly to come in and just kind of give places and space. And then we're partnering with Erica and Maurice White again and Fresh Wind or Fire Wind Ministries. They have a PA system that needs to go into the church that we actually bought last year. Nice. And then they say they're still building churches, and if we would love to build another one, that's awesome. So we're raising money for those. And then last but not least, we're doing Operation Christmas Child, as we have for the last number of years, and trying to raise as many of those boxes. We have a goal of hitting 50 this year. So as we bring the light, as we recognize our calling to do that and to step into darkness, my thought process when I was thinking through this series was based on that old children's song, stick the light under the bowl. No, I'm going to let it shine. Yeah. Stick the light under the bush. No. I just thought about this. If you actually were a light and you yourself were that light and then a bowl was placed over top of you, it would be really easy to think that you had lit the whole world. Yeah. And it would be really easy to think that your job was done. Mm-hmm. And it would actually be really easy to feel warm and cozy. Mm-hmm. And it's not until you let God kind of show you the rest of the world. It's not until you open your eyes and you kind of reveal your mission. And then when you do all that, it's really easy to feel overwhelmed. It's really feel like I have limits to where my light can go. Yeah. I don't know if I can take on this whole mess of a world. But that's not really the job of the light. The light is to shine. Yeah. And so the job is just to bring your light to the party and just to bring your light to this dark world in this dark time, regardless of whatever happens, tonight and the next few days or what's happening on Thursday or later when you're watching this. Your job is to bring the light. And if we do that, I think it brings some unity, because if we all bring our light, guess what? We're ready. And the way we love and the way we bring our patience and we surrender our preference to bring peace is what God does his best. So, I hope that you'd think about tuning in Sunday morning at 10:15 and checking that out. If nothing else, you can go to kingswaymo.org or .com. And there's a Bring the Light page on there that will give you all the information what I just mentioned. You don't even have to watch the sermon to go on there and check out. You can go to the websites of those Victory Mission and the Connecting Grounds, which are the homeless ministries. You can go to Firewind. You can do all the stuff to check out how we're partnering with those, the Diaper Pantry and the Aurora Crisis Pregnancy Center. So I hope this has been beneficial. It's just more of a therapeutic conversation for us to just talk through this stuff. I hope it's that to you. Please, please, please do not push a preference or a political view in this season to break a relationship or to break what I would say is something of trust. It is not worth it. It's just not worth it. Jesus came into one of the most harsh and dominant empires the world had ever seen that was doing brutally terrible things. And he never raised a fist against it. He only did his work in the background as God had called him. And in the end, that humble, loving, patient, kind, generous, selfless love is what brought that nation to its knees and ultimately is what we are under the kingdom of God. And so I just keep telling you, just because it feels like you may be losing or maybe trampled on, it may feel like you're putting in an early grave. I'm telling you, God is the best possible resource to just cling to, and to clothe the dark night, right? That's what you were thinking of.
Oh, always. I'm never not thinking of the dark night.
The night is darkest right before the dawn. And I really do believe that Christ is going to shine and we're going to bring the light. We're going to bring the light that is his love. So thanks for being here, Jed. And thanks for tuning in, guys. Remember, love to learn and be those lovers that love to learn and learn to love well. So, hey, you guys have a great Lord's Day in the Lord. See you later.